The thing that I'd say about the Australian Labor Party is what we want to see is action on climate change, we want to take workers on the journey, and we want to keep the lights on as well. I think that it's interesting that we've got the Greens on one side that want to literally turn the lights off today, and then we've got the coalition on the other side that's denying that climate change is happening. And the truth is, it is the Australian Labor Party that will be in the best position to take us on this net zero emission journey. I think that it's important to understand our relationship with the resource sector. And I'm a proud West Australian, born and bred in the goldfields. I have resources in my blood. I'm an engineer that's worked on the mines, but I am also someone that wants to see action on climate change. In WA, coal was first discovered in Collie, in the Collie Basin, back in 1883. A few years later, it was the Collie Coal Mining District was declared, and before the turn of the century, a railway was extended to Collie and the production of coal began. Back then, in the 1800s, it was a pretty tough life for miners, but it was an important industry that saw the development of Western Australia. It was also important development for the railway network and the regions in WA. By 1930, that industry had flourished and employed over 800 workers, and by the 1950s, that had risen to 1,400 miners in the Collie Basin. It remained a significant industry in the 2000s and employed 1,200 people on the mines and 1,000 people in power stations and support industries. For decades, Collie has supported WA families, WA workers and WA industries. They literally kept the lights on for household, industry and businesses. And as we decarbonise, the nature of our regions will change. The thing that I recognise with our regions is that they are the powerhouse of our country. That's where we get our food, that's where we get our minerals, that's where we get our energy resources. And the thing that I want to make sure that we do as we decarbonise is make sure that we take these communities on board, because they have done so much for us in the past, and we absolutely want them to continue to play an important role in our country. The thing that's great about Collie is that it is now an example of economic and energy transformation that is underway in our nation. Some years ago, a Just Transition Working Group was formed, and it was a partnership between private business, union, workers and communities. They started thinking about plans for the future and how they wanted their town to be. So when the West Australian government announced their plan for an energy transition, which is about turning off coal power stations by 2030, this community knew that they had a positive future and positive industries to ensure that their town continued to thrive. And Collie's a beautiful place with beautiful old-growth forest trees. They have a lovely dam, and it's a really beautiful place to go visit. And they've got some great bike trails as well. And the thing that will be interesting is to see the industries that will develop in this town. And so the WA government committed $0.5 billion to a transition package, which included a fund to attracting new industries. Some of the new industries that have been discussed is like a pilot plant for graphite, also pump hydro, so a new alternative energy source. And they're also investing in skills. And the thing is that we don't want to just see this in one coal-powered town in WA. We need to make sure that we see this across the nation. And that's exactly what this Net Zero Economy Authority Bill does. And let's think about it. This is about a transformation journey to net zero. But let's face it, it's not a journey, it's a race. And it's a race that this government is committed to winning. And we know that there is work that we must do to get there. And it's not a journey that we've embarked on lightly. It's something that we've taken very seriously, unlike the previous government. The previous government did not prepare to act and did not have a plan. They ignored the race and they ignored what was happening around them. They avoided the challenge that was before them. A coherent policy, energy policy, did that exist? No. A climate change policy? No. Well, actually, I think that there were 20 policies in total. Was there a strategic approach to the energy transition? No. There was no plan, no foresight, no long-term strategy about how to ensure the replacement of 24 coal-fired plants, such as Collie. Since coming into office, the Albanese government has turned this around. In our budget, we announced further initiatives to keep us on the path to net zero, and that pathway runs right through Western Australia. And the decisions that we make now will make a huge difference for our future. Australia has the potential to be a renewable energy power. How are we going to do this? By investing in programs to make sure that we get there. $3.2 billion through the Australian Renewable Energy Agency. This will help the commercialisation of clean tech over 10 years. It also includes $1.7 billion for the Future Made in Australia Innovation Fund. We should be a country that makes things here. This fund will support tech-linked priority sectors, including green metals, batteries, low-carbon liquids. We also have $6.7 billion in hydrogen production tax credits from 2027 to 2050. Hydrogen is a little molecule with big ambition, and I think that it is something that's going to help transform our energy use across Australia. The $1.3 billion Hydrogen Head Start program to support early movers and $7 billion for critical mineral production tax incentives for 31 critical minerals processed and refined up until 2040. There's also $1.5 billion to strengthen battery and solar supply chains. The thing that we saw during the pandemic is supply chains became very vulnerable, and we need to make sure that we have robust supply chains to make sure that we can make these projects shovel-ready. We also have $0.5 billion for the geoscience to map Australia's critical minerals and groundwater systems. There's also $15 million for foundational activities for green metal development, which is something that I'm really excited about. If we can create green steel, this is going to transform the way that the world does their construction. And then there's $27 million to integrate household solar and batteries into the grid. The budget we had is one that invests in our clean future and our future made in Australia. We're creating new and secure and well-paid jobs in our regions like Collie, but also in suburbs like my electorate, High Wycombe, Belmont, Redcliffe, Forestfield. We're making sure that we're building infrastructure and clean energy to power new growth and new generation of advanced manufacturing. We will need to make more things here, and we're introducing legislation just to do that. Because Australian-made means Australian jobs. These are decisions that are examples of a government leading from the front and preparing our country for a renewable energy future. It's an example of a government that places the future of Australians at the forefront of our policy to ensure that our future is made in Australia. This bill to establish a net zero economy authority supports Australian industries, supports workers and families to join the pathway to net zero. The new statutory agency will provide an important role in driving our strategy. It will provide a centre for coordination and planning. It will foster and promote investment from the private and public sectors. It's very important to me. This is very important to Western Australia and will support workers affected by the transition. The thing that I will share is that I am the daughter of a miner, and I grew up in a nickel mining town, and my dad worked for a mining company for 19 years when he moved to Australia. The thing that I got to see when commodity prices hit rock bottom is mass redundancies in my town. And so my dad, who had become the breadwinner at the age of 15, had basically been told that he's redundant, you're no longer needed. And he would have been in his mid-50s and probably at the end of his working career because he'd already worked for 4 decades as a metal worker. The thing that I think that's really important that we have to remember in this place is thinking about the workers and putting workers at the heart of our economy when we're looking at transitions. We need to make sure that we look after workers and take them on this journey as we see our economy transition. And what this authority will do is collaborate with employers, unions and stakeholders and help retain people and find new opportunities. And we'll do this by establishing the legislative framework for an energy industry jobs plan. We'll look at redeployment and new opportunities that are key to the transition. Skills and experience are valuable, and we know that. And I'd say that for my dad, when he didn't have employment, he felt the opposite. He felt not valuable and not worthy. And what I want to make sure is that we take people along the journey. So making sure that we connect workers to interested employers for a role will be a part of this authority, helping workers find meaningful employment through the transition. We need to make sure that families are safe, secure and connected to their communities. This is important to everyone and a part of the Australian way of life. And that's why Labor is putting these measures into place, so that all Australians can continue to enjoy and appreciate our lucky country. We will help businesses overcome the challenges of closures and help regional economies move smoothly through the process. And a resilient and robust local workforce and economy will be the way to do this. The authority will play an important part of facilitating a holistic approach to the transition, one that would not have been possible under the previous government. Because we are a government with perspective, we are a government who cares, we are a government for all Australians, not just a few. The authority will support the inclusion and participation of our First Nations communities in the transition. Education and promotional initiatives will be a part of the role of the authority, and to ensure that communities remain informed of the facts. And it's not just me or Labor that supports the establishment of this authority. There is widespread community support. The government engaged with a variety of stakeholders, including First Nations groups, education and training providers, industry, investors, regional bodies, communities, and state and local governments, and of course, the mighty union movement. Deputy Speaker, the authority will be governed by an independent board of a chair of up to 8 members, appointed by the responsible minister. We will ensure the board is responsible, representative and accountable. The board composition will include 2 members with experience from the union movement and 2 members that have experience in business, industry and finance or investment. Other members must have experience in either industrial relations, labour markets, economics, decarbonisation, technologies or policies, climate change, energy markets and regional development, First Nations engagement, advocacy, community leadership, public or corporate governance. We listen to the experts and we want to make sure that we get this right, this decision for our future. In conclusion, we know that workers and communities have always played a significant role in the energy industry. Right back to the 1890s, the collie that I talked about earlier versus collie of the 2030s. For this government, we will continue to see these communities play an important role, and that is our #1 priority as we travel on the pathway to net zero. While we're travelling on this journey together, it's not in isolation. It's a race. I commend the bill to the House.